Rapid evolutionary transition to Christ consciousness. Hello, precious hearts. The light beings in the realms of illumined truth have now revealed that the success of humanity's unique mass awakening in 2025 has co-created the sacred space that will allow a rapid evolutionary shift toward Christ consciousness within the masses of humanity from 2026 through 2030. The light beings stated that they initially believed it would take centuries to accomplish this kind of quantum shift. Now, however, they confirmed that this mass shift toward Christ consciousness will be co-created through the joint efforts of humanity over the next 5 years. We have been preparing for generations to be the stabilizing light force during the unprecedented ascension process Mother Earth is undergoing. To accomplish this monumental task, we are receiving assistance from the company of heaven that is greater than anything ever offered to the sons and daughters of God in any system of worlds. In 2026, the fifth-dimensional crystalline solar grid of divine love and comprehension, which lightworkers have co-created within Mother Earth's body over the past several decades, will be accelerated to higher light frequencies than we have ever experienced. The company of heaven has been given permission to encode into this grid of divine love the highest light frequencies to support humanity's rise into Christ consciousness that humanity's I Am presences have ever received. The divine intent of this facet of our Father Mother God's plan is to greatly accelerate the evolutionary transformation into Christ consciousness that is now taking place within the masses of humanity. This assistance will benefit everyone. Even more powerfully, it will affect the incoming souls who have been uniquely prepared to access the realms of cause, where they will draw forth the verifiable solutions to every single ill manifesting on Earth. The divine potential of this new facet of Mother Earth's ascension process is glorious to contemplate. However, the company of heaven has stated that for this plan to succeed with God's victory, it is essential that lightworkers embodied on Earth participate. We are being asked to serve as surrogates on behalf of every son and daughter of God on Earth. The light activity we will participate in today has been entrusted to us by the company of heaven and has gained momentum in the realms of cause. Together, we will help every person's I Am presence integrate higher frequencies of Christ consciousness into the divinity of their heart flame. This is taking place in the eternal now, so no matter when you participate in this light activity, your magnificent essence is being woven into this phase of the divine plan. In addition to every person receiving higher frequencies of Christ consciousness, during this guided meditation, a concentrated stream of light will help awaken dormant RNA and DNA genetic codes within our 12 fifth-dimensional crystalline solar strands of DNA. Dear one, please now go into the divinity of your heart flame and focus on this light activity. Christ consciousness is the illumined state of awareness that we were gifted by our Father Mother God when we were first issued forth from the core of creation. After we fell into the abyss of separation and duality, we lost Christ consciousness and the ability to communicate with our I Am presence on a conscious level. From that fateful moment on, we have struggled to reverse the negative effects of our fall from grace and to reclaim our divine birthright as conscious sons and daughters of God in Christ. Please join me now as we participate in this light activity, which is designed to help humanity as a whole take a quantum leap forward in our efforts to return to Christ consciousness. Breathe deeply and go within, to the divinity of your heart flame. Follow this guided meditation with the full power of your attention and your divine intentions. Be here now, and let us begin. Return to Christ consciousness. I am my I Am presence, and I am one with the I Am presence of all humanity. What I invoke for myself, I invoke on behalf of every person on Earth, in perfect alignment with each one's divine plan and for the highest good of all concerned. This is possible because we are one and there is no separation. With the sacred breath, I now breathe deeply and rhythmically through my heart chakra. With each inhalation, I align with the love of my Father Mother God and the sacred breath of the Holy Spirit. With each exhalation, my divine parents open my heart chakra to new dimensions and project their divine love and power into the physical plane of Earth. Through this light activity, the portal within my right brain hemisphere and my heart chakra, through which my Divine Mother's love originally flowed to bless all life on Earth, is reopening to its fullest extent. As the full divine potential of my Divine Mother's pink flame of divine love and comprehension pulses through my heart, chakra. It perfectly harmonizes with my Divine Father's blue flame of divine will and power, which is also pulsing within the divinity of my heart. My heart flame, now in balance, has a twofold pulsation. The first pulsation is the in-breath, assimilating and absorbing my Father Mother God's power and love. The second pulsation is the out-breath, expanding and radiating my Father Mother God's power and love. My heart flame is the inner portal for my return to Christ consciousness. It is also the open door that will allow me to once again communicate with my I Am presence and the company of heaven on a conscious level. It is through this open door that the blessings of my Father Mother God and the realms of illumined truth radiate outward into my daily life. In the sacred breath, my return to Christ consciousness and my inner journey to my Father Mother God are balanced with my outer service to humanity and all life. It is in this balance that I reopen my heart chakra to the perpetual flow of my Divine Mother's pure divine love. My Father God's blue flame of power and my Mother God's pink flame of divine love are now in balance within my heart flame. These two aspects of my Father Mother God are now blending into the magnificent violet flame of God's infinite perfection. This sacred fire blazes from my heart chakra and expands into my physical brain structure, activating my spiritual brain centers, which include the pineal, pituitary, and hypothalamus glands, and the ganglionic center at the base of my brain. The activation of my spiritual brain centers creates the sacred space for my crown chakra to open. Simultaneously, a dramatically intensified frequency of the yellow gold flame of Christ consciousness begins to flow from the very heart of God into Mother Earth's fifth-dimensional crystalline solar grid of divine love and comprehension. These brand new frequencies of Christ consciousness now flow through my I Am presence and my crown chakra into my pineal gland. With this influx of light, the highest frequencies of Christ consciousness that I am able to integrate flow through my pineal gland into my mental and emotional bodies. As I return to Christ consciousness, my heart and mind are recalibrated to higher frequencies of divine love, oneness, and reverence for all life than I have experienced since humanity's fall from grace eons ago. The illusions of separation and duality are shattered. I now know that I am one with every expression of the sons and daughters of God evolving on earth. At last, I experience the bliss of knowing that love is all that exists and I am that love. And so it is. Beloved ones, I am that I am. Dear one, as we observe the myriad of experiences we will have in 2026, please hold the sacred space for this powerful light activity and repeat it whenever you feel inspired to do so. This is a multidimensional light activity that is accomplishing far more than we can perceive with our finite minds. God bless you, Patricia Cota-Robles, Master Yeshua. The eternity of love greetings, I offer you my love. I am Master Yeshua. I offer you all that I am and all that the Creator is. When we are together, we are united. When we are apart, we are united. Truly, we are always one. We hold this energy of unity within us. You hold it, I hold it. We hold it gently and lovingly, focusing on our truth. We know that this energy of unity is something unique to us, something we can share. It connects us all together and allows us to see the Creator in one another. When we see the Creator in ourselves and others, we see love, unconditional love, an eternal love that lasts forever. This love cannot be damaged, broken, split in half, or separated. It is simply love, your connection to the Creator. When you embody love, you experience joy, peace, fulfillment, but above all, you feel connected. You feel connected to yourself, to all beings, and to the Creator, to the divine flow of the Creator and the aspect of the Creator that is yours to express. When you allow yourself to recognize, nurture, and empower the love within you, you allow yourself to feel connected to everything that represents your truth. You open all channels and allow truth, your essence, and the fundamental vibrations of the Creator to flow. You allow yourself to be present in an energy that is in constant motion and vibration. It has momentum, and even though it is moving, you are able to remain centered within that momentum. When you allow yourself to recognize this, you access an awareness that leads to greater enlightenment. Love leads you to a place within where you experience movement. the momentum of the Creator flowing through your being, and yet you are able to remain present within it, centered and grounded in it. With this presence come peace, knowledge, awareness, and truth. You begin to recognize that love is eternal. It is always present. It will be present in years to come. In civilizations to come, it has always been present. Perhaps you can grasp and understand that love will continue to flow, that everyone will experience love and has experienced it in the past. It is harder to recognize the eternity of love when you observe certain circumstances and experiences that manifest as separation in your life or in the world. In those moments, it seems that love is not eternal and may not even be present. Yet, when you return to that space, when you are immersed in the energy of the Creator, present and grounded in it, and you know that love is eternal/continuous/always present, you can begin to recognize that even in the most stressful/chaotic circumstances, or in the face of fear/panic/pain, love is always there. If you can recognize that, when you live in chaos, stress, pain, and suffering, love is always present, that it is eternal, and that within that eternity lies strength, then you will know that love is there, ready to connect with any circumstance and experience you are going through. Love is connection, waiting to connect with everything, but you have blocked this connection, this love, preventing it from flowing into these circumstances of suffering or pain. Now is the time, as you find yourself in these circumstances, to recognize that love is eternal. It continues, flows, and grows stronger. When you connect to that space within you, you bring it into every circumstance. You create a connection, and that connection will positively influence your circumstances in ways you could not/cannot imagine, because you are using the energy of love that has remained unbroken. This energy is vast/expansive/powerful, and it is this force that you are connecting to. This is your strength to use to create change, transformation, and a greater presence of love within you and in the world around you. When you recognize the true presence of love, that it never fades, never leaves, never goes away, that it is always there, constantly growing, you can also recognize that the more you connect to this energy, the more you access its power. Love can be the energy experience between people, but it can also be a simple vibration, an intention, an inner memory, an awareness. Allow yourself to embrace the awareness that love is eternal, eternally yours. You hold it, you protect it, and it is what fuels connections. This awareness can generate transformation. I am Master Yeshua. I thank you. The disseminating moon, the waning gibbous, or disseminating moon, is actually the last phase of the full moon. It is at this time that the bright full moon gradually appears to fade. And so we take what we have learned, understood, realized, or completed during the full moon and share it with others. It is at this time that we ignite the flame of others, pass the baton, and find ways to make what we have created meaningful and lasting. One of the ways we make sense of our path is by sharing our stories with others. There are at least 3 stories we can share this week. One concerns the Jupiter/Uranus cycle, highlighted by the April 1st full moon. Another story concerns the Saturn/Pluto cycle, which recently culminated in its initial sextile. Finally, Uranus enters its final anaretic degree in Taurus, preparing for its entry into Gemini on April 25th. All these stories will be relevant this week. Although weakened by their separation, Jupiter and Uranus have been close enough to form a minor semi-square aspect, which was exact last August. Right after the full moon, the moon and then the sun carried light from Uranus in its final degree of Taurus to Jupiter, making us aware of this transit hovering in the background of our lives. This is similar to the early waxing crescent phase of the Jupiter/Uranus cycle, which began with their conjunction in April 2024. We might not remember exactly what happened in the spring of 2024 or in the late summer of 2025, but this story has gradually unfolded in our lives through bright moments of awareness, pushing us to take the next step toward the future. It exuded freedom, the will to break the chains that bind us, the will to take risks to grow and transcend our current circumstances. Innovation, creativity, our inner rebellious spirit challenged us to break free from the chains that prevent us from living our best lives, even if it seemed inconceivable at the time. This, however, is a double-edged sword. The dark side of the Jupiter/Uranus cycle is its anarchy, as it breaks boundaries and erodes the standards and laws we once relied on for things like normality, good manners, and decorum. Unruly, unpredictable, and lawless, the principle behind this transit is freedom. It can mean an exciting new vision right there on the horizon, or it can mean an abundance of unpredictable events unfolding with little to no logic. Welcome to the chaos. When we think of the waxing phase of the Jupiter/Uranus cycle, we might imagine ourselves going through a period of growth, sometimes completely out of control. Like unsupervised, unconstrained teenagers, anything can happen. And God only knows it will. The good news is that when Uranus enters Gemini on the 25th, and then Jupiter enters Leo in late June, they will form an opening sextile in July, a transit of positive potential and opportunity. Right now, we may feel like we're throwing spaghetti at the wall trying to figure out the patterns at play. But by next summer, we may begin to see the results of all our efforts so far. This is the story of freedom. Freedom of expression, freedom to live our best lives, and the kind of creative expansion that can only come when we break down the inhibitions that imprison us. Last year, July-November, Uranus briefly entered Gemini, almost as an introduction to what might happen now that it will remain in Gemini for the next 7 years. Each of these entries into new signs, this year and last, changes the atmosphere and the very essence of our lives. With Uranus entering Gemini, all the outer planets will have changed signs, bringing us into unexplored and unknown territory, a place we have never been before in our lives. This week, Uranus enters its final, anaretic 29th degree of Taurus. Here, all the energy of the previous 7 years is concentrated, assimilated, and broken down to its essence before entering the next phase of our Uranian journey. This is a story of change, innovation, and growth. Uranus desires above all else to find our true and authentic center. To do this, it challenges limits and rebels against anything that seeks to label us, define us, or demand we conform. Taurus is a sign that favors stability, security, and the status quo, that which has well-defined structure and standards. Over the years, with Uranus in Taurus, we have seen the rise of technologies like blockchain and cryptocurrencies, which have rebelled against common financial norms and standards, as well as the very definition of art. With the help of a global pandemic, a strong resistance to the rigid 9-to-5 work schedule has also manifested. As a result, we have begun to see the emotional and physical benefits of a more flexible work-life balance. Ultimately, Uranus wants us to connect with our true selves, free from any external pressure to conform to other standards. Taurus is an earth sign, about our body, the things that nourish and support us. What we eat, how we eat it, how we make a living, our bodies, and the things we hold most dear have been tested in various ways. With its entry into Gemini at the end of this month, it dares to challenge how we perceive the world. The rapid development of artificial intelligence is just the beginning. The final story concerns the Saturn/Pluto sextile, which will continue to linger in the background until the end of April. In this early phase of the sextile, we may want to consider some of the best ways to harness this cycle of renewal, reboot, and rebuilding. Even if you can't implement it right away, this is a good time to create a plan involving some form of restructuring, renewal, or rebuilding. This could be home renovation, or rebuilding your life or body. Prepare for the future. Whether it's an inevitable outcome or a direction we already know we need to take, the key is to be more prepared. Whether it's simplifying your life, doing a serious death cleaning, or just eliminating the superfluous, Saturn/Pluto can help us reestablish much-needed order, especially in times of chaos. Saturn/Pluto can help us adapt to any changes in our lives. We can do this by establishing better habits, healthier routines, and behavioral patterns that allow us to face new circumstances or realities. Considerable effort or ruthless decisions may be needed, but these are precisely the planets needed for this kind of work. It's about eliminating what no longer works to make room for better things. Hakann, do others share your definition of spiritual terms? Dearest brothers and sisters, this is Hakann speaking. I greet you in peace and love. What does the term enlightenment mean? Let's say John here believes that enlightenment means liberation from the cycle of rebirth. John most likely thinks that this is the only definition of enlightenment and that everyone shares his definition, except perhaps some people who are simply wrong. However, suppose Anna believes that enlightenment means something else, such as the attainment of the natural state. And Anna probably believes that this is the only definition of enlightenment. Suppose Julianne believes that enlightenment means liberation from suffering. And she probably believes that this is the only definition of enlightenment. And then there are many other people with even different definitions, such as a state of complete inner peace, embodying the awareness of being a soul that reincarnates, not just a body and a brain. Full awareness of reality, the ability to unmask illusions, a state of complete integration, including the shadow, the end of identification, embodying the principle that everything is one and accepting everything, non-resistance to everything, non-duality, no separation between observer and observed, integration of the truth of no self. So we are faced with the curious situation where many people use the same term to refer to slightly different things. They are all convinced that everyone else agrees with their personal definition, when in fact those other people think that everyone else agrees with their personal definition. Sometimes it's fine to use spiritual terms to mean something over there somewhere. Sometimes that's perfectly fine, and being too precise would just waste words. However, if you are having precise discussions about enlightenment or other spiritual terms, it becomes important to actually share your definition of those terms with others. Otherwise, you might end up misunderstanding each other. Even if you believe you have the one true definition of enlightenment, stating it explicitly during an in-depth discussion on the topic can still prevent misunderstandings. Because even if others have an incorrect definition, why not help them by sharing yours? Furthermore, if you are intellectually honest and study many enlightened people, you might discover that it's not so easy to give a definition of enlightenment. If you give me your definition of enlightenment, I can probably point to someone who fits your definition but who most people would not consider enlightened, or I can point to someone who most people would consider enlightened but who does not fit your definition. And if your definition is so immeasurable or unfalsifiable that I cannot do that, then your definition is not very useful. If your definition of enlightenment is not practically verifiable, e.g., liberation from the cycle of rebirth, it is very likely that you will continue to believe that this person is enlightened and that other is not, even though you cannot know based on your definition. In that case, you are probably publicly stating that the definition of enlightenment is such and such, but then you judge others based on whether you personally consider them enlightened or whether they meet some specific, measurable criteria. So, in reality, you have a measurable definition of enlightenment, but it's a definition that doesn't sound very good or is easy to criticize, so you hide behind a more formal, better-sounding definition. The situation is further complicated by the fact that unenlightened people are often not as good as they think they are at judging whether another person is enlightened. Part of the confusion comes from the fact that enlightenment is often seen as a stage reached after a long path of spiritual growth. However, the very concept of spiritual growth is vaguely defined. People use the term spiritual growth as if it were a one-dimensional path, where first you do this, then you encounter that, then you do these 5 things, and finally you reach enlightenment. It is more accurate to think of spiritual growth as a category of subcategories. Specifically, how loving a person is, their ability to see things as they really are, how much spiritual knowledge they have, how compassionate they are, how much inner peace they have, how many so-called supernatural abilities they possess, how pleasant their energy is, how much self-awareness they have, and so on. And if you map all these categories onto a single scale called spiritual growth, and then create another imprecise term above it called enlightenment for a certain stage of spiritual growth, then you can understand the confusion. This doesn't mean you should stop using these terms. Sometimes they are accurate enough, and being too precise would simply be inefficient. However, it means you need to be aware that, for example, spiritual growth has subcategories and that not everyone using the term spiritually advanced means the same thing. Ideally, you would have a whole range of terms describing specific forms of spiritual attainment and not simply use the term enlightenment to refer to anyone who is exceptionally good at any one spiritual subcategory. Moving to another topic, some believe that all Pleiadians are the equivalent of earthly ascended masters. However, Tunia recently stated otherwise. So, what is the truth? Well, in some spiritual subcategories, even the average Pleiadian is very evolved. The average Pleiadian is loving, has a calm mind, and pleasant energy. You would most likely enjoy interacting with them. While in some spiritual subcategories, even the most advanced Pleiadians do not reach the level of earthly ascended masters. Although it is obvious that Pleiadians are individuals, in general you can get a fairly accurate idea of what Earth humans would be like if they had grown up in a safe, loving, prosperous, technologically advanced, information-rich, isolated, almost ivory tower environment with few external pressures to grow and develop. Advanced Pleiadians are people who grew up in that environment and chose to dedicate a lot of time to meditation, introspection, and achieving high competence and experience in a certain profession. Some of you think, you Pleiadians have spaceships, psychic powers, and are loving, so you must be spiritually evolved, so you must be wise enough to always make the right decisions, even when it comes to intervening or landing. However, spiritual progress is an imprecise term. We are actually very advanced in some areas, and not so much in others. I have come to the conclusion that we Pleiadians are not that spiritually evolved in the subcategory of understanding what life is like on hostile worlds, like Earth. We Pleiadians are like houses with very solid foundations because we grew up with love, safety, and abundance. And if something painful happens to us, for example, the death of our father, it's like a broken window. That broken window is painful, but it's not a tragedy. We simply repair the window through a process of healing, observation, processing emotions, and so on. Therefore, many Pleiadians believe that intervention/landing is not yet necessary. Instead, we will just give you discreet, non-invasive help, loving channel messages, and maybe some meditation techniques. And then you can repair your broken window yourselves, right? Just meditate. Just act productively. However, Earth humans are not like houses with very solid foundations that happen to have a broken window. On the contrary, many of you have never had solid foundations because you never grew up with love, safety, and abundance. And a person who has always had solid foundations but had a window broken simply cannot understand what life is like for a person who has never had solid foundations. They are fundamentally incomparable. Yes, theoretically people can repair their own foundations, but that takes a lot of time, energy, resources, etc. We Pleiadians are used to having those, but many of you are not. So it's as if some of you have a wound that keeps bleeding. This makes it deeply unfair for many Pleiadians to have the attitude that you should just repair your windows yourselves, because this is a fundamental misdiagnosis of what is actually happening. So, I believe there are valid arguments for us to intervene or land immediately. That said, there are also valid arguments for waiting. I have changed my mind, and nowadays, if I were in command, I believe I would order immediate intervention/landing by our galactic family. However, the situation is not that simple, and I would not say that the Ashta Council's plan to intervene/land only at the end of this year is wrong. It is a different choice, one I would no longer make, but that doesn't mean it's wrong. The arguments for and against short-term intervention cannot be represented on a one-dimensional scale. It's not like a financial calculation where gains and losses are expressed in dollars and can be easily compared. Instead, the arguments for and against short-term intervention are so different and expressed in such different units of measurement that it's difficult to compare them. Therefore, it's hard to say that one position is simply objectively wrong. If you are interested in the arguments against short-term intervention, see the previous message, Ashta, Our New Commitment. Moving to another point, even your name is an imprecise term. It's a convenient abbreviation, but technically it refers to a unitary person that doesn't actually exist. Instead, you are a soul that reincarnates. And your current incarnation, what you are experiencing, is a collection of body parts, biological processes, habits, emotions, thoughts, etc. But it's really more of a constantly evolving, collection than a unitary person. This is the realization of no self. If you look within, you will find that there is no person, only a combination of biological processes, etc. On Earth, they sometimes use the analogy that if you take apart a chariot, nothing remains. There is no chariot left after removing the wheels, reins, seat, etc. This can help you feel much less frightened, because if there is no person, what is there to worry about? Who is there to protect? Who is the one who needs to achieve wealth and prestige? Who is the person who needs to ensure others like them? Who is the person who dies after 90 years? Of course, even when you integrate the awareness of no self, you can still experience pain afterwards. Simply, there is no person who suffers. Pain can be there. There is no, oh no, I will suffer so much forever. I can't take it anymore. Why does this always happen to me? And yes, it is fundamentally silly that I use the word you, while arguing that you don't really exist, except as a collection of biological processes, etc. However, as we discussed, imprecise terms like you are still useful. It's not practical to communicate without ever referring to people or using I and you. Of course, you could try using other terms and descriptions instead of saying I. But if you want to communicate with any modicum of effectiveness, you would most likely just create a different, less effective, and ultimately still imprecise term. And you wouldn't gain any real advantage. So feel free to continue using abbreviations related to spiritual terminology. They are effective. Just keep in mind that spiritual attainment has subcategories and to clearly define terms whenever engaging in in-depth discussion. Well, I hope this was helpful. With all my love, your star brother, a collection of biological processes etc. named Hakann, the 12 creators. Relax, it really is that simple. We are here for you. We are the creators. We are a 12th dimensional collective of non-physical beings, and we are here to help you. We know you as the magnificent beings of light and love that you truly are, and we are here to invite you to recognize yourselves in that way. However, we know that you often use a yardstick acquired on Earth to determine your worth and who you are relative to others. You must stop doing this. It would be of great help to you to tune into your true essence and let go of the idea of who you are in this life as a defining characteristic of your being. When you can release low self-worth, you can truly be the being you are meant to be in this life. You are meant to be yourself and follow your dreams, your passion, instead of trying to figure out what you need to do to have self-worth, self-confidence, self-trust, and self-love. Your life is telling you what you are meant to do, what your purpose is, and you have not hidden any of this from yourself. It's all there, in front of you. No secrets, no treasure hunt. You have no hidden agendas. You are there to live the experiences you are having, and when you change the way you experience those experiences by changing yourself, then you realize you have understood them. Now, it is not a contradiction to say that you are meant to be who you are and that you are also meant to change, because everyone and everything changes, and there is always something more you can become of yourself. You are changing, becoming more complete people, not changing who and what you are at a fundamental level. You can release what you are not by paying attention to how you feel. If you feel something that doesn't feel good, it's likely because at that moment you are pretending to be someone you are not. And that feeling can come from a thought, because that thought does not best represent you. The feeling can certainly also come from words or actions. You know yourself better than anyone else. So you must look within to figure out what is best for you, what actions to take, which path to follow. But again, your path is likely to find you, and it will be up to you to walk it by being the person you truly want to be, rather than conforming to someone else's idea of you. Give yourselves proper credit for choosing the path you have chosen, especially if you find it particularly challenging. You, the soul that you are, knew you could handle everything that comes your way in life, and your soul will always give you exactly what you need to grow and expand in the unique ways that are possible for you, starting from where you are now. So you can always count on your soul, on your true self, on your whole self, on your most complete self, and you don't need to rely too much on your mind to figure all this out. Release the pressure, relax, and be who you feel yourself to be, so that you can fit into the puzzle that is Source as the piece you were created to be. It really is that simple, and you can do it. We know you can. We are the creators, and we love you very much.